The senator from Florida.
Mr. President, this amendment, 1471, is our amendment, and it would modernize the formula in which this money is distributed. This formula is 34 years old. It privileges a handful of states over the vast majority. I think the number is 15 over the other 35. And it's not just me saying it. The EPA issued a report that stated that the current formula does not meet the wastewater needs of most of the states, and it recommended that this be updated regularly. Notably, from the EPA's report, it says the EPA does not know how the current allotment formula was developed. It says, quote, the weighing and factors that were used to establish the formula for the original allotment are not known. My home state of Florida is one of many that are disadvantaged under the current formula. And the result is been obvious over the years. I think most of my colleagues would agree that distributing funds, let alone $14.4 billion to states without rhyme or reason, is not beneficial and it isn't fair. And it's not just states, by the way. This amendment, if passed, would secure more equitable allotments to Native American tribes and territories. Now, Mr. President, unfortunately, and I made in our drafting of this amendment, there was a small technical error in which instead of stating that it should be 0.025 in the distribution for Native American tribes, it says 0.0025. So I would like to ask unanimous consent to further modify Amendment 1471 with the changes that are at the desk so that the right number is on there.
Is there an objection?
Reserving the right to object. I cannot agree to this unanimous consent request because this is the exact reason why we don't amend complicated formulas on the floor with limited oversight. This bill was hotlined last night, I think, with the current language from Senator Rubio. Now he would like to change it here literally at the last moment. And with all due respect, I just cannot agree to that. I said to him in a conversation off the floor, I think he knows me well enough that I'm willing to work with him and others who would like to see some modifications in this formula going forward. This is not the end of the trail. I mean, we'll have conference with the House, we'll have negotiations with the White House. And I just want to say to him, I look forward to working with him as Senator Capito to consider the changes that he's proposing, but not to do it at the last minute here on the floor. I'm unable to do that. And I reluctantly object, but I'm going to have to do that. I object. Objection
is heard.
Remaining time, I just want to tell my colleagues.
The senator has no time remaining. Is there an objection? Without objection.
I just want everybody to be clear. We're not changing the formula. There's an extra zero. It is literally a typo. The kind of typos people make every single day in the Senate. Instead of saying 0.025, it says 0.0025. Everyone knows what it was intended to do. That's the way we've talked about it. That's been objected to. The Senate is now a place where you cannot amend a typo by unanimous consent. That's unbelievable. It is unreal. I frankly find it unacceptable.
Amendment as modified.
If I could, Mr. President.
The senator from Delaware.
Just one last thing, if I could. Our committee has worked on this legislation all year. We've had hearings, we've had meetings, discussions, staff level, member level, to try to come to agreement on all kinds of provisions of this bill. And we're prepared to do more of that once this legislation is adopted. But we reported this bill unanimously because it will benefit citizens across our nation, better ensuring that no matter where they live, they will have access to clean and safe water. Our bill ensures that every state, territory, and tribe will receive more funding to make critical investments in clean water projects. But by proposing a formula that only takes population growth into account, Senator Rubio and Senator Scott's amendment will ensure that many states, including rural states, territories, and Indian tribes, will lose water infrastructure funding, in some cases as much as 80%. We can ill afford to take money away from these governments when their needs are so great, especially in communities that have historically been underfunded and underserved. And that's why more than 50 different organizations, Mr. President, from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to the League of Conservation Voters and a whole lot of others in between, opposed this amendment. And as a result, I ask a unanimous consent Mr. President, to submit for the record a list of those organizations, a growing list of those organizations for the record. I urge my colleagues to join me and Senator Capito in voting no on this amendment. Again, looking forward subsequently to working with Senator Rubio and Senator Scott to see if we can't come to a consensus on this proposal.
Without objection, the materials will be submitted for the record. The senator from West Virginia.
Unanimous consent to address for a minute.
Without objection.
Sure.